All right, the time has come, sir, and this means that we're beginning our podcast. And do you know what the name of this podcast, sir?
Yeah, this is the Scully Says podcast. I'm Pat. You're Tom.
Yes.
Um, this is, an episode kind of on just we're being more topical. We're talking about the uh Wall Street Journal's popular topics.
Yes.
And a good focus on electric vehicles and their viability going forward.
Yes. Well, yes. Well, here's something that I just happened to just come across. There's just somebody that's very, very popular back in the day, and she was a young girl, and she's very, very, very popular, very good-looking girl, and she was in kind of a scandalous movie almost. It was called Blue Bayou. She was, I think, 13 or 14 years old, and she was semi-clad, don't you see? And she was laying on the beach with this other clown. I can't remember what his name was. Anyway, and then she goes on. She graduates from Princeton, and very, very smart, good-looking girl. And and she was used pretty much by a family, and made a lot of money for them, and they took a lot of money from her, used a lot of money. So she had kind of a lot of problems during her life, a lot of which were not caused by her, just came down on her. But you know who that was, sir?
No, who's up?
Brooke Shields. Do you remember Brooke Shields? Do you ever hear Brooke Shields?
Yeah, I've heard of Brooke Shields.
No, the only reason I bring her up was she died.
Oh,
She died, and I didn't even know she died.
I didn't know that.
So no, yeah. So it's very, very, she was very big stuff for a long time, and she was a quite unusual person. Really good looking girl, and anyway, went to Princeton, was very, very smart. They had a very, very high IQ, and was kind of used and abused during her lifetime. And, I guess it's sort of like that poor little rich girl saga, but she had some tough times in front of her. Anyway, so she kind of passed by the scene. I didn't realize it, and I just thought it's worthwhile just mentioning it. Anyway, so that's what we have there.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
yeah, no, it just is. So anyway, that was Brooke Shields. We all have our time, so to speak. The costs are going up. You know that, sir. You flew the airlines, did you not?
Oh yeah, I flew the cheapest one. I flew, well, I guess I don't know if it's actually the cheapest, but I flew Allegiant because they fly direct from
Yes.
Dayton
Yes.
to Florida.
You
So,
you have to get them on the right day,
yeah, yeah,
and you have to.
it's 2 days a week for us in Dayton. I think it's Thursdays and Sundays is when they come to
Yes, it
town.
used to be in Gary. Uh, unfortunately, this is the region, you see, and so they had this. They had the Allegiant in Gary, and they thought it was going to be a great thing, but there's only one problem.
It's in
The
Gary.
Yes, the employees talked about how bad it was. So you say, they talked about what a terrible company it was, and so they slowly. Well, it didn't take them too long to discourage anybody from using it. And then, as a result, they ended up without a job. They couldn't figure it out, but that's what they did. You see, and they had this thing. I don't know if you know anything about. You got to be very careful with their website because I think they allow you one bag.
Yeah.
But in any event, if you put down one bag and then you need to change that for some reason, it is almost impossible to do. My experience with them was I went to the airport and they told me they said well you don't change it on the internet. You go to the airport and you tell them the day of the flight. You see, and needless to say, well, you know the rest of the story, do you not, sir?
I can imagine that you get to the internet the day of the flight and they're like, "Oh, I can't help you. I don't know what to,
There you
what to
go,
do."
sir. There you go. Yeah, it's a familiar story, a sad story, but familiar nonetheless. So,
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is like so, in Dayton specifically, but Ohio in general, like we take a large amount of pride in being like what our state's called. We're the birthplace of aviation, and
yes,
that
yes,
all that entails, I mean, Like, listen, frankly, no air mission that's been even remotely important hasn't crossed the desk in Dayton in the entire time the Air Force has existed. It's very important in a material way to aviation. You know what I
What,
mean?
what's
What?
what's the state's motto on the license plate?
It's birthplace of aviation.
That's not what I saw.
Which one did you see? Oh, the heart of it all is the
No,
new one.
no, I didn't see that either.
Which one?
The one I saw was First in Flight.
That's North Carolina.
What?
So North Carolina. So all right, I can actually. This is just a side tangent, but I can get into that. So North Carolina basically takes credit for being the first in flight because they had the first long sustained test flight with the Wright brothers. But the Wright brothers flew with themselves in the plane in the Wright Flyer here in Dayton. It's the site of it is literally Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That's why there's Wright and then there's Patterson Air Force Base. It like bought the other field and became this massive thing. But that field is where they first flew at. And then they flew at Kill Devil Hills, which for whatever reason it's always misattributed to Kitty Hawk. But it's Kill Devil Hills, which is also where the monster truck Gravedigger is from. In fact.
Yeah.
But that's where they flew their long test flight, so that's their claim to first in flight. But I'm pretty sure Ohio sued North Carolina pretty extensively over that.
I see.
I don't know that we won, but I do know that we did sue them. Anyway,
Well-
but we take aviation seriously, and the problem is when I go and go to the Air Force Museum, which has time capsules of all these different planes, and like you can go on like 5 or 6 different Air Force Ones. Actually, you guys have to come to town and go because one of the Air Force Ones you can go on is the one that Lyndon B. Johnson was sworn in on and Kennedy's casket was flown home on. And I think also that same one, I believe, had a elevator for FDR, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was the same plane. But anyways, point being, you can go through all these legendary planes, and even when you're looking, it's Air Force One. Obviously, it's going to be opulent as all heck. But when you're looking at the use of the plane and the use of the space in a much smaller space, the planes are much smaller than they were now.
Yes.
It was much more catered to your enjoyment. It was much more catered to your comfort. It was much more catered to, actually being up, like, you're spending this luxury to go somewhere in a quick time, and they made it nice for you. And now, like, they'll just, cancel your flight, move your flight. I mean, we had a flight moved up before. One time they moved up one of our flights. Like, we were like waiting for it. And then we were like, oh, we got like 30 minutes. And we're eating. And it's like, oh, it's boarding in 5 minutes. They moved up the flight. And so it's like, they can just do whatever they want. Once they have you inside the gate, once you're past TSA, security, whatever, everything like that, customs, they just do whatever they want. They don't care.
Yes.
They'll cancel a flight. I had a flight from Paris to Chicago, and they canceled it because the pilot was sick. And don't get me wrong, guy was probably pretty sick to cancel the flight. I'm sure they don't like doing that. But like, the way they handle it is totally different. And these are $1,000 tickets at least, probably more than that. And, you just don't get any luxury. You just don't get any amenities or anything like that. And it's unfortunate because it's continuing to get more expensive, but they're trying to find more and more ways to fit more people in there as opposed to, make it a better experience for the flyer.
Well, so I take it that you watched the moonshot, did you, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one's strange too.
Strange in what sense?
Like,
The toilet not working?
well, no, that's weird, but no, but I mean you were alive in 1969. You saw them shoot a very similar looking rocket, except for they landed, right?
Yes.
And now it's like, oh, we can't do it because of whatever. And like, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of valid reasons why you can't do it. I understand. I'm not a physicist, whatever, but it's just weird. It's like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? It's like a half measure, like they're.
What do you mean can't do what?
They didn't want to land. They said that they weren't able to land, that because the initial plan was to land on the moon. And then they walked it back to they weren't going to land on the moon. And then I think even up to like a week beforehand, they were thinking about canceling the whole mission because there was some weird like issue going on. And then they figured it out enough, but they were like, okay, well, we're not even going to attempt to land because it's not worth the risk, I guess, which again makes total sense. I'm not saying that that's weird. That makes sense. It just was unfortunate because I was hoping that when the Artemis mission got planned, it was that they were going to go back and stand on the moon and do that,
Well, I wasn't aware of that, but I know Artemis 2 that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to go on the moon. But the thing about that was, which I think is a good thing, it was 50 years they did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
know,
No, the
I mean,
space shuttle program, they even told us when we were in space camp, when I did the space camp near you
yes.
guys.
Hmm?
And even then they would tell us like it's an extremely ineffective form of space travel. It's really, really good for hauling cargo up to space and getting like landing back at like an Air Force base because it's basically a plane, but it's super bad as a as a way to travel to another celestial object. And so we spent like what, since the 70s, like 73, I think is the space shuttle when it first came around, something like
Yes,
that.
yes.
So we spent from 73 to I think 2011 or 12 is when the space shuttle program got halted, doing basically nothing, just like putting stuff in this, like, obviously putting satellites up, doing payloads. That's all important.
Yes,
But
yes.
it wasn't until Elon came around and started doing the Falcon X heavies and the Falcon X rockets that NASA kind of was like, oh, right,
Yes.
we should be using the technology that we had in 1969 because it's way better. You know what I mean? And so they just redesigned the rocket, I guess.
Well, I think they have this new guy in charge of NASA, and evidently he's doing a good job, and he's kind of, he's got some, he's kind of spearheading this thing again. So
A bit
people,
of like a visionary.
yeah, yes, exactly. And so they're moving step by step, but I think a lot of people are interested in it, and I think that it does a lot. I think it does a lot for people. There's a lot of people that were glued to the television set,
For
watching
sure.
this thing, and it's interesting. A lot of things that are interesting is like the heat shield. Well, that's the heat shield. They have not been able to improve that since 1973. I think it's like basically it's Corningware, if I'm not mistaken. It's that same
Yeah.
type of stuff. But they're going to change that the next time up. They're changing it. So they say, but that's the big problem. They got the heat, the heat that hits that thing. So anyway, that's what we. But and so there's another thing that the Wall Street Journal brought up about flight and so on. Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines is making some bucks these days.
I believe
Uh,
it. That's honestly, if I had to choose one, I
yes,
think as a
yes,
kid growing up, I would have chose Southwest. I think Southwest was really, really special. They're really
yes,
like,
yes,
even Southwest had that reputation where like sometimes it would take a little longer to get on because like every kid who
yes,
came through, they were like,
yes,
come
yes.
look at the cockpit, come to, all that stuff.
Yes, yes,
I understand
yes.
the limitations now, obviously,
Yeah,
like I lived through 9/11. I get it. I understand. But like the degradation's not just because of security. It's obviously other stuff too.
yeah,
I would say Delta's the other one. Delta's the one that I like now. If I can choose, I fly Delta. When they like work with Air France sucks. But like everything else is,
yes.
Delta's network is pretty good. I mean, and they do good rewards and they partner with like companies that actually make sense to travel with and stuff. Like I like Delta.
Yeah, I think they had big contracts with the federal government at one time. I don't know if they still do. They probably do. But
That
anyway,
makes
the
sense. Yeah.
thing that was interesting to me, and they brought this up in the Wall Street Journal today, what they did is they bought a refinery.
Delta.
Delta bought a refinery, and this refinery they've had it for a number of years now. And so the idea, of course, is with the fuel prices going way up, they have their own refinery. I think it was a refinery that was owned by Conoco at one time, and they purchased it.
Oh, is this in South America?
No, it could be in Ohio, actually, to tell you the
Oh,
truth.
okay.
And so at any rate, but it was owned by Conoco, and but it seems like it was a pretty it was a good idea. Of course, there are people that criticize it as well, but that's you can't do
Oh,
it.
it's in Philly.
It's in Philly. Okay, there you go. And so you can't do
Interesting.
anything without being criticized. You know that.
No, that's
Yeah.
great. That's cool though.
Yeah. I
So
think
so
it's,
so that's their way. I guess that's their hedged bet
yes.
against
Yes.
getting screwed with this whole the gas
Yeah.
prices and all that stuff.
And of course, it's like anything else. You think you're going to save money, but actually, it's like I remember when I bought this my office building. When I bought it, I figured, oh, I'm going to save a lot of money. But by the time I paid for all the upkeep and paid for the taxes and everything, they didn't save really any money.
Yeah, roof upgrades, property taxes,
Yes.
power,
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
and then all incidentals, right? Like
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's the same thing that happened with this. That they have other expenses that they didn't anticipate, but so maybe it's a wash. I don't know. So, but that's what we got there. And
Well,
let me.
actually, on the topic of oil, what I was gonna say is we were thinking last week we were talking about, or not last week, but last time we did this, we were talking about I think Venezuela, Maduro, how the
Yes.
Venezuelans like think about that. So when I was out in Florida, Florida has a really strong Venezuelan population, and we met probably like 6 Venezuelans, I would say, like people from like heavy accents, literally from there, all that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and every single one of them, I was like, what do you think about what happened with Maduro? Every single one of them, we talked with a guy who was an economist or a lawyer at home. We talked with a guy who's an engineer at home, and we talked to the guy who was IT. He worked in like with computer systems and stuff like that. All of them, two driving Uber, the lawyer driving Uber, and the IT guy driving Uber, and the guy who was an engineer working at an airport bar.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to them, and I was like, what do you think? Because obviously, from the American perspective, we're there's two ways you could look at it. It's really good or don't intervene in anything. And they were like, oh
Yeah.
my God, it's the best thing. They're like, it's great. Maduro is terrible. They said one of them was alive when Maduro took power, or not when Maduro, when Chavez took power way back when. And he said that his dad had 3 houses, was like very well to do, was an economist,
Yeah.
and he was like living a very good life. And then they said, you can only own 2 houses. So the government immediately seized one of them.
Yeah.
And then they said, and one of your houses is for the people, meaning that a government official, military member, whatever, was housed in the other house. And then you
Yes.
got your house that you got to keep. And yeah, I don't think the way he made it sound, you didn't get a pick. You didn't get to pick which property
Yes.
you were,
Yes.
so maybe you have a really nice beach house. All of a sudden now you don't. And now you're living back in your house that isn't whatever. So that's the type of stuff that would happen. And they were saying that they would bring in at like most $20 a week, sometimes $20 a month as economists, as like a real job,
Yes.
and how military members drive flashy cars and they
Yeah.
have, Mercedes and BMW and all this. And, I guess they were just all very aware. They're like, our country is very rich. We have a lot of oil. Our country is worth a
Yes.
lot of
Yes.
money.
Yes.
We don't have any of it. We live like we're in a
Yes.
third world country when our country, bats way above its weight class.
Yep.
And so generally the consensus was everyone was pretty jazzed that something had changed. So
Yeah.
that was good
Yeah.
to know.
No, well, I mean, this guy, they say was a government, but in the government, the guy was a thug, and he was a criminal, and he was inflicting terrible problems on the United States, particularly with the kids dying from the fentanyl and so on.
Yep.
So it's a good thing that
That's what
he.
they kept saying was he was a gang member. There,
Yeah,
some of them were their English was better than others, but that's what they kept saying was
Yes.
it was
Yes.
like a gang, like our government's like a gang,
Yes. Yeah. He was a cartel. It was a huge
Yeah.
cartel, and then of course, yeah. So that. And so, a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't get involved in this. And of course, the thing that was another thing that was surprising with this Iran thing. Talking about Iran, I was very surprised that Trump backed off at the very end. It's kind of surprising because most of the generals are saying it was a big mistake, and I think it is. I think these guys they're holding most of the world hostage because of the Strait of Hormuz. They're not letting the tankers go through, and if the tankers go through, they got to pay $1 million. I mean, it's crazy. So
Yeah, it is nuts.
yeah,
It's absolutely nuts.
so yeah, so if he made the commitment, he probably should have finished the job, and I think that's what most. But anyway, so there we are, and
Well, I think it's getting muddied because now that whatever's going on in Lebanon and stuff like that, I think that
yes,
he didn't want to get in a never-ending Middle Eastern war. That
yes,
he did
yes,
say that like
yes.
10 times.
Yep.
So I think like what happened is he got over there, realized what was really starting to metastasize, that this was going to be another greater Middle East war, and I
Yeah,
think he's I think he's hoping to distance himself from it, but I think when you open that can of worms, like, I don't know that leaving or not being involved is going to work. You know what I mean? That never
No.
does, I feel like.
Well, in many respects, this Hezbollah basically is part of Iran.
Yeah.
So they're,
I think they're a political party in Lebanon and Iran, I think.
yes, yeah. I mean, just lobbing missiles and everything into Israel, and so it's going to continue, and it's not going to stop. And so I don't know what the answer is, but
Yeah, I don't know how you do it because the problem is they're very good at like hiding in civilian areas and putting their bases in places where like the collateral is really bad and everything like that.
yes,
And so when you go and try and deal with them the way that you would deal with a normal like government operation, you can like do some real damage. And sometimes the war is like perception more than the actual war, especially when it's so far from our actual country, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And so I think that no matter what good he did, the perception was about to just be so bad. And it like, I don't know. It's a tough one. I mean, I think we should have just really not gotten involved if we could have, I feel like to me, that's a UN problem, or we would love for it to be a UN problem, I suppose, is what I mean to say.
Well, we'd love the UN to do something.
That's what I mean. Yeah, yeah. We'd love the
They,
UN to be a standing troop force that deals with world conflicts. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
no, they have been completely ineffective. And the problem with them is that we have supported them. We have the United States to support them, and they've been anti-American all these years,
yep.
and we support them, and they insist that we support them, and if we don't continue to support them, they'll just go down the toilet. I mean, because they nobody else is going to support them.
Yeah. Didn't Trump threaten to pull? Or no, that was NATO. That was NATO that
Well,
they
that's the
pulled.
same thing. Same thing again. Yeah, they they refuse to help us, but they say that we have to pay a tremendous proportion of the cost. So, and so that's what
Yeah.
we got there. So, all right. So I guess we got that all. I think we have that solved now, right? So we got the Middle East problem solved. I mean, well,
It's really that simple.
yeah, I would think so. Yeah. So yes. Anyway, so there we go. We got the Middle East, and so we'll continue. And of course, we talked about. We talked about. Did we talk about your car, sir? Did we mention the
No, we haven't
cars?
got there yet.
We haven't talked about VW. We haven't talked about Porsche. No, none of that
No,
stuff.
no.
No, we and so they're pulling the plug on that what do they call it, the electric conversion, the
The
ID4,
IDs.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
ID4, yeah. So you got any input on that, sir, or you?
Yeah, well, I think a couple things. I think that first off, the era where we design a car to look like it's electric
Yes,
is pretty far gone.
yes,
I think that people don't want a car that looks like, oh, look at me, look at my nerd mobile, you know what I mean? Like people want a just normal car that might have a different motor, right?
Do you have a
So
Nerdmobile?
what's that?
Do you have a Nerdmobile?
Yeah, it's my car looks more like a normal car, that's actually
Okay.
why I got it. I think that they did a good job of like not making it be like so electric vehicle on the inside, obviously being there's just one screen is a little bit whatever, but um I think like if you go look at like the BMW 330e, that car performs remarkably well, or I think that's what it is. I think it's a 330 or 330i, whatever. But if you go look at the BMW that's just a 3 Series with an electric motor, the car performs really, really well. It's a great car and it sells pretty decent. But then you go and flip around and you go look at the EV Charger, you get one from a car that's a V8, and you release it as a electric car, your fan base is alienated to a certain degree. And so obviously with a V8 car with chargers, muscle cars, whatever, that's a harder sell. But when we're talking about someone like you, right? If you're buying a car,
Hmm.
why would you walk in to Volkswagen, go look at the sticker price? You can walk in and see an Atlas. An Atlas might be like 48 to like 55, right? They're not a cheap car, but it's an SUV,
Yep.
whatever. An
Yep.
ID4 will start at like 56,
Hmm.
and it just doesn't work. And like, yes, you get a tax credit, yes, you get this, yes, you get, but I don't want to have to do all this like, nonsense. If the car's worth nothing, the car's worth nothing. Like that's just like what it is. And so like I don't want to do the whole, oh well, I get a tax rebate or I get this. No, stop. So that's becoming their big problem. The other thing is they're trying to build these architectures that go across multiple different types of cars. So the ID4 underpinning might have underpinned the electric Atlas, might have underpinned the electric Jetta, the electric Golf, blah blah blah. That works, except for when you have 5 cars that sit in the same niche. Then why wouldn't I get the Golf that has the exact same motors and everything as the ID4? And when I park it next to your gas Golf, it looks 99% the same car. You know what I mean? I don't stand out like anything. And then it's just an electric car. Like, you know what I mean? There's no point in these cars. And Porsche is the one who's really kind of screwed themselves, because Porsche put a bunch of, they R&D'd their next Cayman, which is like their bread and butter sports car. It's the entry level car.
Yes.
Entry level, $95,000.
Yeah.
But they're cheaper sports car. They put them all on electrics, and now they're cutting up those chassis and putting motors back into them. And they're talking about scrapping the whole project and starting clean slate with basically, an iteration of the old car, because there's no demand. No one wants to drive these cars anymore,
Well, getting on now, just read you a little bit. It says Porsche car deliveries fell 15% in the first quarter as the end of the U.S. tax incentives for EVs and hybrids and other factors dented sales.
Yep.
So that's what they say about that one.
Which makes sense, because that $7,500 is the same reason why I got an EV. I would not have got an EV unless that tax incentive was there. And then because it made it so that I could get into one for relatively affordable,
Okay, so VW, they've got the same problem. They've got problems. Porsche got the problems, and Mercedes, they got a problem too.
Yeah, well, Mercedes tried to redo their whole lineup electric, and they had to scrap it all. It's the EQs. Like, you've probably seen one actually in your neighborhood. I know there's one in your neighborhood because it's genuinely one of the most horrendous looking cars of all time. But it looks like a Scarab. Like, it's just a Beetle. It's this giant Mercedes. It's supposed to replace the S-Class. That car retailed for $150,000 brand new. I could get one right now for like $36,000. 2022, like 2023, 2022. They're worthless. They're worthless cars because no one wants them. No one got a Mercedes to have a car that can go 200 miles, and you got to try. It's just people don't understand the use case for electric cars. Like, electric car is supposed to be city runabout. Like, if you like, for me and Emma, we have long commutes, but they're in the same state with a good EV infrastructure, so we can charge. It it works for us. That's what they're for. They're not. You know what I mean? It's never going to replace I'm going to drive down to West Palm Beach every winter, car. Like, the person who is a snowbird from Chicago and doesn't fly because they want to bring all their stuff with them. That's a lot of S-Class owners. You know what I mean? Like, that's a huge amount of them. And those people the use case doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. And they're just trying to fit the round peg into the square hole. The other crazy stuff, is, I know Tesla fell off, I think something insane. Like, I think it was like 30% down or whatever, like sales, obviously. Yes. Stock is, valuable, but Tesla is, rapidly losing market share, rapidly losing market share. And, it's just a weird time because these prices are too high for the average person to afford them. I mean, like, I would wager median income is somewhere around 50 or under that, I would bet. And the average price of a car is like 55. Yeah. And that doesn't work. Like a car shouldn't be your whole year's salary. Like, you don't want it to be that, maybe if that's your thing, like if I bought a Porsche, so I spent a year's salary on whatever. Okay, fine. But I mean, I would imagine in your generation, that would be like, you would clown on someone like, what car did you get? Oh, I got a 69 Chevelle. Oh, how much did it cost you? About a year's salary. You'd be like, idiot. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing?
Yes.
Now it's common. Now it's average. I don't know how many friends I have that have multiple cars that they can't afford, or I mean, they can afford them. They're paying on them, but probably shouldn't if we're being, super frugal and being, building.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's the Mercedes' biggest market?
I don't have market research insight on this brand.
I didn't either, but I just saw it, so that's how I know.
Oh, oh, okay. My guess is probably the biggest people is probably like people 55 to 75.
No, country.
Like where they sell the most
Yes,
Mercedes?
yeah.
Well, I would want to say Germany, of course, but I mean it's got to be a bigger country. Let's say China.
That's what they said. They said China's the biggest market, the biggest market. So,
Yeah, China also like keeps Buick afloat. That's why like you see those random Buicks that you're like, what the hell is that? You know what I mean? Like those random Buicks are just because China makes, China is like voracious for like large sedans. They love like large luxury sedans. And
yeah,
so Buick still makes like other cars in their market that they don't bring over here. And that's what keeps the brand afloat. That's literally why Pontiac got axed because they were like, there's no reason to get rid of Pontiac. Pontiac has like such a strong brand like identity here in America.
yeah.
And Pontiac also has always worked with the Australian brands, which is how like most of GM's modern cars are Australian based. And so they were like, well, we're not going to get rid of Pontiac, but then they like go and look in China and it's like, wait, like Buick's outselling every GM product, and so they had to keep them around. But yeah, the Chinese market's fascinating. That's why like I'm anti the Chinese vehicles coming in with no tariff because they tariff our goods and stuff. But I'm very pro the Chinese coming in and putting a smackdown on some of our domestic automakers and making them step their game up. You know what I mean? Like Ford has been putting out trash. I mean, like Ford's cars, I love Fords, honestly, but you have a Subaru. You get in a Ford, and a Ford should in your mind when you're thinking from like a 90s early 2000s perspective, you get in a Subaru's a little bit more tinny, a little bit less quality materials, unless you have like an LL Bean Outback or something, whatever. But they're like supposed to be like a more like adventure car, right? But then you get into a modern BMW, entry level BMW Explorer, whatever, and it's no better than a Outback in any way, shape, or form, equipment or materials, or and so just stratifying it, but the prices and all that staying the same has just been killing these brands. I mean, why would you buy a Mercedes in today's day and age unless you're buying a special one? What would be the
Yeah.
reason?
And is Rivian, is that the name of the outfit? That Rivian is, are they coming up?
The weird little trucks with the like oval lights. Yeah, the Rivians
Yeah.
are cool. They have a cheap one coming apparently. So they have one
No.
that's going to be on the $35,000 range.
Okay.
A little hatchback.
Yeah.
Think like a first gen Golf, like a Yugo, that size car. Should be cool. I mean, it should be cool. I like who's been doing really killer is Hyundai. Hyundai with their electric cars, they've been doing crazy because they met the need, right? Like they said,
Yeah.
people are going to want fast electric cars. So here's the fast ones. We made them and they're special and they're not crazy expensive. Here they are, whatever. And then, but like the people who don't want the fast ones, let me just make you a good car that happens to have an electric motor. Like it doesn't have to be quirky. It doesn't have to be silly. Like anyone can get into it and not be overwhelmed by it. Like you get in my car and you'd be like, wait, where do I start? And it's like, oh, it's all on the screen. And then once you figure it out, it's like, oh, okay. But like you'd get in it at first. There's nothing. There's no stock. There's no turn signal stock. There's no start button. If you don't know, you just sitting there and you're like, the hell do I do? So that's not easy sell for most people who are good use cases for EVs.
And so your evaluation of a Toyota Prius, what do you think?
I think they're cool. I cross shop my Tesla versus a Toyota Prius, and I don't regret not getting the Toyota, or I don't regret getting the Tesla because there's no maintenance required really on those cars. Like you just rotate the tires and just, check your brake pads and stuff. Which has been awesome for me. No gas is cool too, but the Prius is becoming, I mean, it looks really cool. I don't know if you've seen a new one, but they look really, really good. And I mean, you can get one with leather seats and cooled and heated seats, which is like, really crazy options. You usually only get that in a Lexus.
Yes.
And for 35, that's hard
And
to beat.
you could also drive it down to Florida too, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And you wouldn't have to stop like me 8 times to charge up.
There you go. So there we go. So as people have said, you pay more for Toyota. Toyota used to be cheap, you see. Now you pay a lot for Toyota, but it's the best.
Yeah,
It's
Lexus really doesn't make sense anymore because of how expensive Toyota is.
well, okay. Lexus is, they last forever too. I mean, they're a class commodity. But anyway, that's Toyota, and of course, Mr. Scully, he goes to Consumers Report and he looks up and sees what, and they say Subaru is the best for the buck. So, it's sort of like the Samsung, don't you see? The Samsung is not the best television. Not the best television. We know the best television is a Sony. But of course, you look at the price tag and you go with the Samsung, of course.
Every time, yeah, because the Samsung's way more than good enough for the price point.
Yes, there you go. So that's what we got. Yeah.
And that is the thing. That's, again, that's where a Corvette used to sit, right? That's why a Corvette was so popular as like the midlife crisis car, because
Yeah.
it was a 38 to $60,000 car. It's attainable after like putting in some good work. It's an attainable second car for sure, and then you kind of have your Ferrari, you kind of have your whatever. Now a Corvette starts at $68,000. You want to get a special edition Corvette, you're out 97,000. You want a fast Corvette, you're out 150. You know what I mean? It's too much. It's too much.
Well, then I don't see the sense of these. I know guys that had these Corvettes and they're up on these blocks, 9 out of the 12 months. And then the other 3 months, they drive them very, very gingerly.
I never get it. I never get it, right?
Yeah.
Like, just if when you have a friend who has a Corvette and you see him in it every day and you see like, scrapes and scratches and a little bit of mud and dirt, you're like, hey, you're getting the full enjoyment out of that thing. You know what I mean? But when you just sit and look at it, it's like, brother, you could slip getting out of the tub tomorrow. What, that car's just going to be prime for the next owner, man.
Yep. So we've got that settled too. So I think we've got the electronics segment of the economy fixed. We've got the automotive. We've got it all fixed up. And not only that, but in the early part of Saturday, we also have we've got the Middle East crisis done. So the only other thing I want to bring up, of course, is there's antitrust going on now. You know what the antitrust is? And you know who they're talking about now, the Justice Department. Who are they talking about?
If I had to guess, Google?
No,
Maybe
sir.
Microsoft?
No, sir. No, that's nothing like that. It's
Okay.
called the NFL, sir. The NFL, yes.
Are they? Is this another one of those like CFL or not CFL, XFL like suits or UFL suits where they're like mad because they don't have the market share? Is that what's kind of going on?
I think it's the government is after them right now. Yeah, I think the government. Oh, yeah. The government said something about. This is something I was just looking at. Check that out. But I believe that's what they're talking about. They're talking about the NFL, and let me see if we got anything down there about that. Huh? I don't see it. Anyway, but that's what they're doing.
Interesting. So this is actually very cool what the government's doing then, huh? It's about the viewer. That's what they're upset about. That's what their issue is.
Yes. So that's
which I would agree, right? You use public money for stadiums, but then you get private revenue money for the ticket sales. You use public money for the police forces to be there for during these during these games and events. Every time you travel, if you're a state school, if you're like Ohio State or you're I guess we're talking about the NFL, but if you have connections to state schools like that, like the Bengals with Cincinnati, stuff like that. You're you're drawing government funds. You're very much a public-private blended entity, and being difficult to consume is wild.
Yeah. Well, that's what it says. As the DOJ opens probe in NFL over its media rights deals. So that's a Sports Broadcasting Act passed in 1961, grants to the league limited antitrust protection that allows teams to collectively negotiate packages of TV rights. So I guess the Justice Department is looking into it.
This is really good because this is a problem that I have as like an out-of-town Bulls fan. Is now I'm not watching the Bulls right now because terrible product, no thanks. But when it's good, I like to watch them, and I get blacked out for Pacers games. I get blacked out for Cavaliers games, and I get blacked out for Pistons games. And then weirdly, sometimes, a lot of the time, I get blacked out for Atlanta Hawks games and for Memphis Grizzlies games. And like, those are, first off, some of those teams are like 7 hours drive for me, 6.5, 7 hours drive. That's crazy. And so I'm getting blacked out, so I can't watch them with my League Pass subscription. So what I'd have to do is like that's why I used to use your guys' login and like basically use a VPN and pretend I was in Chicago so I could watch the game like a local.
Does
But
this
there's no
mean when you let that out, sir? Does this mean that I'm going to be prosecuted?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
No. I mean, could my good name have been besmirched and
Smirched.
besmirched? Yes,
But
besmirched.
no, it is
up, too.
crazy. It is
Yeah.
crazy. It's impossible to watch these games. I mean, in this thing right here, it's saying it costs $240 for the season, but then there's not every game that is on that. And that's $240 for the whole season to watch every Sunday game. So you don't get Thursday nights and you don't get Monday nights. Great, awesome. I don't get 2 of the days that they play on, right? You have to pay over $1,000 a season to watch the games. That's not acceptable. That should have never been acceptable. You know?
Well, sir, let me say this: since 1963 to the present time, your loving grandfather has not paid $1,000 for any of these sports events. In fact, not paid $500. You see where I'm coming from there? Yes.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing is though, is that's the benefit of living in a major city is that maybe if you lived in Chicago and then moved away before the 90s, you would have wanted to watch Jordan. Well, actually, no, but back then it was different because they actually didn't do this. You didn't TV the game would be on like ESPN. You know what I mean?
I
Your local.
believe, yes, Mr. Jordan would be able to survive it without my viewership, I think.
Almost certainly, yeah.
Yes,
Almost certainly, yeah.
He's still scraping by. Even today, still scraping by.
He's actually well on his way to being a champion in NASCAR as a team owner.
Oh, is that right? Well,
Yeah,
that's good.
His guy won the first 3 races of the season. It's crazy.
Well, I think his racing team then did better than the Wizards. Is that what I'm to understand?
Yeah, the Wizards are still very bad. So
You remember he was part owner of that franchise, was he not?
playing.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
well, yes. We're going to take a pass on both of those things. And I think, all right. So all this is still now. Is there anything else that we've not covered that has to be covered before we get out of here? What else is there anything that's on the that's eating away at your it has to be discussed before we call it a day?
Nothing sitting on the top of the head. Just
No.
I
Yes.
basically just kind of hopefully things don't progress where we have too much to talk about next week with the war stuff and all that keeps being good. I would prefer more peace if we can. And
Yes.
all.
Well. Yes. Well. Those kind. You cannot. That's one of those things that you cannot win for losing.
Yeah.
Because if in fact nothing was done and these guys developed a nuclear bomb, whatever the hell they were doing, you'd be criticized for that. They said, "What the hell were you doing? You were asleep at the switch. You didn't do a damn thing." And here these, and God knows what they're going to do with that thing there. And of course, they've got this this strait right now. They're using that as leverage right now. They have it's against all international law. They have absolutely no right to do it. But they're holding these these big companies hostage. Now, if they're doing that against all international law, if they had a nuclear device that could blow up, say, New York City, what do you think they would do with it?
Right.
And if you did nothing, to stop them from getting that, what do you think the criticism would be? So you've got that, and then of course, if you do something, then of course you're an interventionist. You say so.
It's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yes, there you go. You say you can't win. You can't win for that. Now, the other thing is now that that's been averted, you see, there's still some problems, and that's the cleanup, and that's sometimes the cleanup is more difficult than than what they started out with. They've eliminated the nuclear threat, but now they still got these guys coming around, causing all kinds of problems, and so that's going to be the question. And so, what do you do? Do you do nothing? Do you do something? And if you do nothing, well, why do you do something? If you do something, well, what the hell are you getting involved in the first place? So, it's one of those things. And so I think a lot of times what's going to happen is you're going to have people that are sitting back watching what happens. And then if the intervention works out badly, then there's going to be people jumping on the bandwagon and say, why the hell did you intervene in the first place? And then, of course, if it works out just the opposite, you're going to have people, saying you should have done this, you should have done that, and just and that's where we're
You
at.
can't please everyone.
No, well, I think that's a song, isn't it? Isn't it? This is probably before your time, and we'll probably end on that one. Even before Mr. Pierogi's time.
My time.
Yes, it was called Ricky Nelson. Do you know who Ricky Nelson was?
No, I don't know.
I did not think you did. Well, Ricky Nelson, he was there used to be this show called Ozzie and Harriet, and it was one of these old time 50 shows, they like family, and they had these two kids, David and Ricky, don't you see? Well, Ricky became a rock and roll superstar. You see? Ricky
Like in
Nelson.
real life or in the show?
Oh yeah, no, in real, but in both.
Oh,
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
very
And and so, but Ricky developed a problem with his nose. Liked to sniff things up, you see. And he was in an airplane, and the airplane made a sudden descent. Do you see what I'm saying? A sudden descent, and so too sudden, and so that was the
him
end of
and
that.
Richie Valens and Buddy Holly and all
Well,
that.
well,
Not the same plane, but same way.
yes, but with Richie Valens and the Big Bopper and so on, that was through no fault of their own. I don't think we could say the same thing about Ricky, but who
he
knows?
was flying the plane.
Well, he was in there, and I believe he and his co-pilot, whoever it was, but I believe the two of them were, see, they were recreating. They were doing something like that.
Hey,
But
well,
so-
that's one way to go.
Okay.
Jeez.
So now his fame. So we have our fame, and then what happens at the end? Fame kind of fleets, and then and so he went to a place called Madison Square Garden. You're aware of that place, are you, sir?
Oh yeah, Billy Joel's house.
Yes, sir. Well, and so he went there. See, he went there, and he gave a concert, big concert. You see, and so people were not interested in his new stuff. They were only interested in his old stuff. And they kept on asking for him to play the old stuff. And he said, no, don't you see, I've evolved. I'm like, yay, you see, I've evolved. I've evolved. I've into new stuff now. But they didn't think so. They thought that the old stuff was better than the new stuff. And so the name of it was Went to a Garden Party. Yeah. And so,
Interesting.
yeah. And that was the thing. And if all I stand is for old stuff, I'd rather drive a truck. That's what he said, you see. Yeah. And so he went to a garden party.
So he is like Kanye.
Well, yes, in some respects, they wanted him to do. Yes, well, Kanye, England has taken away his ability to travel there now.
I
So,
know, right?
Yeah, not right. But anyway, I don't like Kanye's views on a lot of things. But anyway,
No, I don't like
Yeah.
his views on a lot of things, but banning him from an entire
yeah.
country
Yeah.
is a little crazy.
Yep. Just because I disagree with somebody doesn't mean that but that gets us off on another tangent. But anyway, so Ricky Nelson, it would be a good thing to look up. Went to a garden party. If all is, It's a good song. Yeah. But
Oh yeah. Garden party, yeah.
Yeah, yes. So it was his last big song, and that was his last big song was that nobody liked this new stuff. That was it.
That's funny. There's a little bit of a diss track too. He disses George Harrison.
What about George?
He said to George Harrison that he hid in Dylan's shoes, talking about that Mr. Hughes, who is what Harrison uses as an alias, that he was gonna make a Dylan cover album, which apparently he didn't end up doing.
Oh,
But yeah, they're talking a little bit of crap in there. It's just funny. That's always cool.
yeah. Well, that would get us on to other things about George Harrison, the Beatles, and yes, Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper, and we don't want to go there. So it just take us down a bad path, you see. So all right, I think Mr. Progi, I think he's fallen asleep. I think he did. He says he's not, but
Ricky Nelson,
He said Ricky Nelson, yeah.
not Ricky Martin.
So not Ricky.
When you said it, I was thinking Ricky Martin.
Robert, that's the problem, you see. I've always been more of a Ricky Nelson fan, but Mr. Pierogi's been more into Ricky Martin.
Was it Living the Vida Loca?
Yeah,
Yes.
Living La Vida Loca.
The Loca part is what he's lived. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. What would you expect from a guy by the name Mr. Pierogi, you see? Mr. Pierogi, Mr. Gwumpke, Mr. Pigs in a Blanket, all those guys, they hang around together, you see. And God knows what they're up to, but they are big fans of Ricky Martin. You see?
We got
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, the Vida Loca and the Loca is yeah. Anyway, that's what they did, and we'll not get into that because there are libel laws and the defamation laws that knowing Mr. Pierogi, he'd probably try to file one against me. So we're gonna let that one go. I guess now, and this you have a job to do, sir, before we sign off, do we not?
Oh yeah. So this has been the Scully Sez podcast. This is the job before the job. I thank you guys for tuning in. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and TikTok. And make sure you like, subscribe, and just help us, keep getting our message out there. And if you liked it, like it, and if you don't like it, send it to someone who will.
Well, hey, I got two questions though now on that one. Just before I let you go, first off, I'll agree with you that we need all the help we can get. But you said something about the message. Maybe you can elucidate me. What is the message that we're trying to get out? What is that message?
You have to watch the podcast.
Oh, I see. It's confusing me, but anyway, all right. Well, hopefully I'll have the message down next time. And so, all right, that's it for us, sir. And over and out.
All right.
All right. Bye. Love you.
Bye. Love you too.